And welcome back, everybody. I'm Dan John, and this is the danjohnuniversity.com podcast. This is podcast 157. Welcome back. If you have questions for the podcast, be sure to email them to us at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'm always amazed when people ask in the questions below, how do you send a question? And I'm always like, in the beginning, I used to say it at the end, and now I say it at the beginning and the end. And I honestly think for some people, I need to say it. We used to have a phrase at discus camp: horse, water, drink. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, with the age of the internet, you can talk to people and answer every question in the world, and they still want even more information. If I sound frustrated, I just answered a series of questions in my emails, and one person has asked me like 6 times about a resource that's online. So finally I did that let me Google it for you thing, and I'm just surprised that in this day and age someone still doesn't know how to use Google, especially in my world of fitness. So listen, let's get started. Our first question is from Bill. And right away, he says something I find interesting, but he goes, my son is preparing to test as a firefighter for our city department. I was hoping for some guidance I could give him in preparing for the test. I just find it interesting that someone preparing for become a firefighter is having their dad email for him. I'm not being a jerk. I would like to know more of the story. And of course, maybe the son doesn't want help or doesn't want to get information, but I've worked with a lot of firefighters in my life. My family is, we're a typical, first, second generation family. A lot of us are police officers. A lot of us are military. A lot of us are firefighters and first responders. One of the things I always worry about when I'm working with firefighters is that they have very high standards for admission. And then once you're kind of in many departments, the standards drop off markedly. And I've been told by my cousins and my family members that as a firefighter, you have really probably in your career one great fire. You'll put out a lot of sheds and little grass fires, but and when it comes time to that one fire, there is no way to train for it. I'm thinking about in South San Francisco when All Souls Church burned down, and listening to my cousin talk about not only the heartbreaking loss of such a monument, but the exhaustion of going for so many hours, for so long in terrible heat. That's a hard thing to train for. So let's get going into the question itself. I was hoping for some guidance. He's 5'10" and 180, very athletic 21-year-old. He still plays on the wing for a very good soccer team. So if he plays wing in soccer, you can pretty much guess that his cardiovascular tests, whatever they have him do, are going to be pretty, he'll be fine. The equipment he has at his disposal are an ab wheel, a 16K kettlebell, a 24K kettlebell, a pull-up bar, and a push-up handles, as well and a 40-pound weight vest. Now, I think the weight vest of all those things might be something he'd really want to think about. I don't know what his station is going to require, but I know that in many of the tests now, a lot of his loaded carries. A famous shot putter friend of mine who's no longer with us once tried to, break some world record in some firefighting thing. It's a lot of dragging, it's a lot of carrying. And so I think one thing I'm going to strongly recommend is at least 2 days a week he gets out there with that 40-pound vest. But do more than just ruck like I would have a fat loss client do. I would also, if appropriate, if there's a park course near the house, or even something as simple as going around a typical park, and whenever he comes up to a bench, he could do push-ups on the bench, he could do step-ups on the bench. You can just climb over picnic benches. He can do some bear crawls and things like that. And of course, the most important thing I think for a firefighter is hill work. because of the stair work, the ladder work. So anytime he can find a hill and run up it and bear crawl up it, I think that has great value. He does have limited equipment there, but we have on the site, Dan Johnny University, we have a firefighter program that has been developed with firefighters, with active firefighters. The other day I was with a number of firefighters talking about how valuable they found the information. So keep playing soccer. There's this. Any help you can provide would be greatly appreciated. And maybe this is why he didn't ask the question. He is working a couple of jobs, not too physically taxing, but he has limited free time. Well, if he can continue playing soccer, I think there's great value. The training and the games will be great. If you could add those 2 rucking workouts, the weight vest workouts, but remember, do more than just walk. And I would even stay away from running with that weight vest, because he's going to get so much running and cutting and everything else. I just, let's be reasonable about, any kind of injuries issues that can happen. But when he does ruck, I wouldn't mind him sprinting up hills, bear crawling, stepping up and down on park benches, picnic benches, even do, I don't know, make some games out of it, enjoy it. For the lifting, of course, the ab wheel, I think should be just sprinkled in. I think for him, it wouldn't be a terrible idea for him to do the ab wheel every single day. Keep the reps low, sets of 5, don't go crazy. Focus on, that hollow position of the ab wall. And then, frankly, if you don't want to use a firefighter program at DJU, and not everyone wants to sign up, I get that. I would recommend that with the weights he has and the pull-up bar, just do the rite of passage program. Again, you'll find that on the RKC prep program on DJU, and you could probably also find it in Dragon Door products. The rite, R-I-T-E, of passage. So, to summarize, Bill is asking a question about his son. He has limited equipment. My recommendation is he's on a soccer team. Continue playing soccer and let that take care of his cardiovascular needs. 2 days a week, go for a ruck. Have some fun exploring the world. Sprint up hills, bear crawl. Do push-ups and chair sits on park benches, and if he does, I would also recommend the rite of passage program as written, 3 days a week. None of these is going to push his time very much, but together he's going to get all the qualities I think he's going to need to pass those tests. Thank you, Bill. Okay, our next question is from Christoph. As you have witnessed almost all trends and opinions on weight training for the past 60 years or so, I want to know your thoughts on the topic of knee to toe foot position. Oh, I have been waiting for this, Christoph. Some claim that the knee should not go over the toes when squatting. Others claim it is not a problem as long as there's no pain and the heel remains on the ground and pressure is on the whole foot. My impression is that how one is built plays a big role. Your thoughts on this? Yeah, absolutely. It's how you're built. People keep asking about the newest thing. I mean, for God's sakes, because it's been 6 months, so we have to retrain everything. Is this the guy? And God bless him. I understand he's a decent guy and everything, but now everyone's trying to get hypermobility in the ankles. And one thing I do like about the work I'm reading is that there's a real emphasis on walking backwards. But if you read Matt Hill's book, the Systema Health book, which is a nice summary of this health practice called Systema, which, by the way, 2 decades ago was the answer to all questions. He's a real big fan of walking backwards. If you read the work of Irving Dardick from the 1980s, he was a real fan of with those exercises called butt kickers, high knees, and backpedaling or sprinting backwards. If you join me on my visit to the University of California at Davis on a recruiting visit, which wasn't a good visit for me, but the coach did talk about, in their discus throwing and shot put warm-ups, a lot of backwards running. And then I was reminded about when Osmo Kihos was trying to help me back in '91. One of the things he had me do was a lot of backward sprinting to help my Olympic lifting. So everything old is new again. There's nothing new under the sun. Most of us have had some level of backward running in our programs. The downside of excessive ankle flexibility is that if I'm coaching a sprinter's core and you walk over and you start to get their ankles more mobile, I'll have to fire you on the spot, if not beat you senseless. Because, when you're trying to do things like vertical jumping and long jump, triple jump, sprint, probably the hurdles, ankle flexibility, you don't, your ankles, you want them to be like rocks. You want almost no movement there. When you pound that foot into the ground, and you're really, all you're going to do is hit the balls of the feet, toes. You want it to be like you're hitting the ground with a steel pipe, boom, boom, and you drive all that energy into the ground. Force precedes motion. You drive all that force into the ground, and of course, Coach Newton then shoots you forward. I think there's, Christoph, thanks for asking. Yes, I do think that the way you're built is going to be a factor. I just bought a Chinese weightlifting manual, and I'm looking at these Chinese lifters do things online. I'm looking at the way they do things in books, and frankly, that's just not a way most people probably move. This is kind of unplanned, but this is that great book from 1950 that's been the vintage edition has come back out, The Secrets of the Squat Snatch. And of course, the Barnhoff brothers and Pete George, they taught a method of getting into the deep squat by really pushing the head forward and countering it with the butt behind. I wish I would have done this as a lifter. And the idea, though, but if you look at what he's doing here, and I'm doing my best to show it, his ankle flexibility is almost nil. I think you need to have extremely mobile shoulders to be an athlete. I think the wrists need to be very mobile. I think the fingers and thumb need to be very mobile. I would prefer that the elbows and knees not be very mobile, and appropriate mobility in the shoulders and hips. And then with the ankles and I was about to say feet. With the ankles, it's going to depend on what you're trying to do. You can sometimes mobilize a joint, and it takes away from performance. I'm not saying this is the truth on this particular thing. I'm just saying you got to keep in mind. I would say for long-term health, mobility of the toes and the feet. Sounds weird to say mobility of the feet, but keeping the feet muscles strong, aligned correctly, so in other words, your toes aren't, squished into it, not like this, with all this, I think they're called bunions, the broken toe. I think for long-term health, healthy feet are underrated. For long-term health, I'm not sure how important the ankles are. But thank you. It's a good question. It is how you're built. DNA is hard to overcome. This is a good question, Christoph. Christoph's question, basically to some, when it comes to knees over toes, knees not over toes, genetics and DNA have a big role. Getting yourself to be hypermobile in certain places can actually take away from performance sometimes, or you have to retune the violin a lot. The word tune and tonic all come from the same root, and I like to think of knitting my athletes together as like I'm tuning an expensive violin. I hope that helps. Thank you so much. We have a question from Michael. Now, Michael has a question that's quite different than usual. Do you have any advice for scaling push-ups? For context, I'm 28 years old, 6'4", and weigh about 215. And here's the asterisk. I've lost over 140 pounds from my heaviest over the past year with diet, walks, runs, and kettlebell swings. My goal is to be a police officer, although I failed my agility test. For the agility test, I'm able to run in the allotted time and complete my sit-up numbers. But I'm struggling with push-ups. 6 months ago, I couldn't do a single push-up. Now I can comfortably do 5 or 6 and around 15 on a max effort test. I need to do 40 for the test. Everything I read about increasing push-up numbers basically boils down to do more push-ups. What about for someone who struggles to can't even do a few? Do you have any advice for programming to increase push-up volume? Well, personally, I would go in two directions here. The first is find some way, as best you can, to find a cheat push-up. Now, when I was young, we were still doing, and by the way, over at DJU, when you look at the push-ups, Brian has a whole scale, and I know I demonstrated the one called the wall pike-up push-up, but here's my thought. So, Michael, there's a few things I want you to do, and they're almost, don't think of them as opposite, but think of them as both supporting the same goal in kind of different directions. The first is find a push-up variation that you can do the 40. It can be a wall, almost standing straight up and doing it like this. I'm looking over here at that surface there, and so the surface there, if I did the push-up, I'd be probably at that angle like this. That one, if I did it on this chair, my angle would be more like this. And what I would do is find a way, and I would practice at least once a week, if not more. Practice the variation you can do to get yourself to those 40 reps, because there is a need for a certain level of muscular endurance for you to have. And that muscular endurance is to be able to get through the 40 reps. I know that sounds weird, but so what I'd like you to do is find a variation you can do that's 40 reps. I do the same concept with a kettlebell snatch. If you're a male and you can't snatch the 12 for 100 reps, working with the 24 is going to have very limited value, in my opinion. I'd much rather you train on the 12 until you can get the 100 reps, and then we get you to the 16 until you can get the 100 reps, and then we'll talk about, passing that snatch test. The other thing I'd like you to think about is the old-fashioned grease the groove, and it comes back to your complaint. You say here you can comfortably do 5 to 6 and around 15 on a max effort. What I would recommend maybe on the first day, several bouts a day, anywhere from 6 to 15 times a day. You say 5 to 6. So let's even go one less. I want you to hop on the ground and do 3 or 4 pull-ups. 3 or 4 pull-ups, 6 to 12 bouts of that a day. You don't need to warm up. You don't need to psych up. Pop to the ground, 1, 2, 3, stand back up, and you're done. You could, I don't know how many times a day you pee, but it could simply be every time you pee. If you're at your home bathroom, you do 3 push-ups, or whatever you do, 6. You could put a beeper every hour on the hour, you do 3 push-ups. And what I want you to start thinking about is, and it's going to feel effortless, and that's what I want. Do that until you're like, I can easily do 4 or 5. Good. You go 3, you jump to 5. And I think you know where I'm heading. After a while, you're going to go, okay, that's pretty easy. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself fairly quickly, and I'm guessing about 3 weeks, where you're going to be doing bouts of 10, and it'll feel like how bouts of 5 felt now. And then once you're at 10, I wouldn't mind seeing us continue this for a few more weeks. So let's say this. So 2 or 3 times a week, do that set of 40 or more on that cheat variation of the exercise, Michael, okay? So if it's the wall push-up, it's the, if you have to do it up on the back of the couch where it's about this high, whatever you can get at the height, you can get 40, and you're going to practice that and get your endurance, not only the local endurance, but this endurance to get up to 40. And then I want you to have those, 6 to 12 bouts a day of 3. As soon as you can, slide up to 4 or 5. As soon as after that, slide up to 6, 7. and just slowly, progressively build up those extra reps. Every single person I know who's ever struggled with pull-ups, I've had them do something similar. And by nudging your way up, you'll get there a lot easier than by forcing it. Getting that high rep set of 40 with the pull-ups, we would hang. I have those stretchy bands, and you put your feet in them. So you do your test. If you have to do 25 for a test, and that that's not an uncommon number for like certain collision occupations. Well, I have you doing sets of 25, a couple days a week with a big, heavy, stretchy band that in some cases is making you finish the reps like, whoa, whoa, because you're getting snapped up like a vertical bow and arrow. Yeah, this might be something we could talk more about. I could put together a program for you, post it on the site, but I think it's pretty clear. So our friend can't do push-ups, needs to get to 40. He's at 15. My recommendation, find a spot that you can do 40, elevate your hands to a spot that you can do 40, 2 to 3 times a week. Do the 40 reps. I recommend even more over time, just so you have a cushion. And then throughout the day, 6 to 12 times a day, do bouts of 3 push-ups until that's so easy it's a joke. Slide it up to 3, 4, 5, slide that up to 6, 7, 8, slide that up. By the time you get to those bouts of in the area of 15s or so, I'm pretty sure if 15s feel like 3 used to, you'll pass that test. Thank you. And hope for the best. And let me know how it goes. We have a question from Jordan. How do you deal with strength plateaus? I can't seem to increase my deadlift past 350. I'm 26 and 220, so it seems like I should be able to get past that. Yeah, every time I've come to a plateau, what I normally do, and it took me a while to figure this out. I had to read the work of George Leonard and his book called Mastery to figure this out. Whenever I'd hit a plateau, I would take my forehead and smash my head against the wall as hard as I could. Later, I learned some better options. There's a couple ways you can go. First, I'm going to tell you almost at every example to stop deadlifting. But that's not what I mean, but just pay attention. So my deadlift has always been very good because I snatch and I clean and jerk. I'm an Olympic lifter, and Olympic lifters have good deadlifts because the first part of the lift is a deadlift where you explosively hit right after. So if you have anything ballistic you know how to do. Personally, and I just read a thing Marty Gallagher posted about this not long ago, using power cleans. I mean, I still think the power clean is one of the most underrated exercises there is. But, doing a couple doubles in the power clean. He also recommends power clean and military press. Doing, 5 sets of doubles in the power clean, and then maybe, 8 singles in the power clean and military might do more for your deadlift because of that, teaching you that explosive hit. The next idea I have for you, and by the way, you can probably put together all these concepts, is to change your variation. I actually helped my Olympic lifting years ago by doing thick bar deadlifts. And because they were thick, I had to have a C grip, or what we call a raptor grip sometimes. And what it did is I had to focus so much on getting my hands to just clamp down that bar. Well, what I noticed is that my shoulders came in underneath. I put myself in a better starting position. I was much more concerned about where my toes, where the bar was over my feet and toes. I became much more concerned about where my elbow was placed, so I wouldn't just drop that bar when it was 2 or 3 inches off the floor. So thick bar deadlifts, snatch grip deadlifts, that heel together deadlift. Now that's how I train. When I'm adding load to my snatch, when I'm trying to move up, I have traditionally put my heels together and use a snatch grip. I got that from an American lifter by the name of Joe Doobie, and it just it made sense when I read it and I started doing it, and I found it really helps my bottom position because with the snatch grip, my hands are out there, so my shoulders have to be lower. And when I put my heels together, that is such a, well, it's a compromised position, but it also, that combination, I don't feel strong in it, but after a few weeks, I can really feel myself carried over. Stopping deadlifts sometimes really helps people. Changing deadlift variations seems to really help people. And then, of course, now finally the last answer is, if you're just going to try to drive your deadlift, I mean, you're just going to smash your head against the wall, I'd recommend more of an easy strength approach, but with this idea. I want you to do 2 sets of 5 days a week, and that's it. 2 sets of 5 days a week, and I want you to start off with ridiculously light weights and do the movement every day. Just do the movement. It can be dull, but I mean, if you're deadlifting 350, I would rather you not even get over 205 or 225 for a couple of weeks. But what we're trying to do is get the repetition practice in. So if you're stalled in any lift, I think it's a good idea to do these 3 things. 1, stop doing the lift entirely and move over to other movements, maybe that are more explosive, more dynamic, similar enough that there'll be carryover. 2, change your variations as by hand grip, foot placement, or even how high or low you have it on the ground. Deficit deadlifts are pretty good, and rack deadlifts are pretty good. You just keep finding the different ways to go after it. And then number 3, just go to a traditional easy strength approach, 5 days a week, but stay light, kind of like what John McKeon used to recommend. And then, go light for 3 weeks, take a week off, and then just see how it goes. All right, thank you. Our next question is from Steve, and it's a little, it's a sciencey question. It's not bad. It's just a little sciencey. It says this. Steve says, I've read that training fasted raises cortisol levels. I almost said cholesterol. Sorry, cortisol levels, which can be catabolic and inhibit fat. What is my view with my experience? Well, see, here's the mistake I think everybody makes. Look, you said this phrase. You said training fasted. What do you mean by that? I mean, if you're gonna, do a workout, I don't know, if you're gonna train fasted and run a marathon, yeah, well, the marathon's gonna raise your, it's gonna be very catabolic, and oddly, very often, if you do something, what I call death march training, you freak your body out so much that it holds on to fat. When I train in a fasted state, I go for a walk. There's 3 things that'll help you, that'll put you in the fat loss zone. The best one is probably walking. So walking is an amazing, for most people, that puts you in those numbers that are best for fat loss. Now, I'm gonna get a lot of pushback because, listen, little Edna who wears her slinky outfit and shows you her rear end on every Instagram thing, she is going to fight back on this and say, no, you got to follow my program and take my supplements. But the truth is, just going for a walk is better than 99% of the crap you'll do in your whole life. Number 2 for fat loss is sitting. Right now, I am burning fat. By the way, I'm in a fasted state. So right now I'm not eating. I used to make the joke, of course I fast between bites, because that's funny. Between bites, I don't eat. Okay. Maybe it's not funny. But sitting, your basal metabolic rate is actually amazingly high. This thing here called your brain, I believe, it burns, I mean, it demands more energy. I was about to say burns calories, but that's true, but it's much more complicated than that. But this is the biggest energy user of your whole body. So sitting and doing something brilliant is probably going to be better for you than a lot of the other nonsense you do. And of course, finally, is sleeping. I sleep in a fasted state. I personally, and Steve, you might find this odd, I don't eat while I sleep. And it's weird because I will fast the entire time I'm sleeping every night. I strive for about 9 hours of sleep every night. Don't always get them, but that's the plan. And part of the reason I try to sleep that much is I have been on a very interesting fat loss journey. I basically started at 260 and I met my goal. I got to where I wanted to be. I am going to do something kind of exciting for me in the next few weeks. But yeah, really, for most people, for most people, if we can get them to simply just get more sleep, their sugar cravings seem to drop off. All these little health markers improve just by getting more sleep. So it comes back to, what do you mean, Steve, by training in a fasted state? In my world, training in a fasted state is doing easy strength followed by a walk. And I just don't think that hits me with a catabolic load. What I do notice is that when I did train with easy strength and I did improve my sleep and I went for those walks, my body weight dropped off at a rate I honestly couldn't believe, and I couldn't believe how simple it was. So I would say, if you get a chance, it's free on Dan John University. So if you go to the site, and I think there's a free membership for a couple days, but the course is free. Look at the course, Easy Strength for Fat Loss, and look what I say versus maybe what you're saying. And I'm not saying either of us is right or wrong, but make sure we hear each other. So thank you, Steve. Will asked a question that is really not bad. It's one of those important questions for those of us who compete in events where you have to step on a scale and have your body weight measured. So let's go. I am wondering if gaining weight is an inevitable outcome of increasing strength. Is it possible, for example, to get stronger, but keep under an upper weight limit that I already have 81 kilos for MMA? This is amateur MMA, so there aren't big weight cuts prior to weigh-ins involved. Yeah, I work. I actually work with a number of professional fighters, and they belong to an alphabet soup organization that I know you know. I think I have a lot to offer that community, and the number one thing I offer is the program we call Easy Strength. And when the fighters pay attention to me, which they do, they're very good at this, and they slide themselves into an easy strength template, very quickly they notice that they not only fight better on fight night, because there's so much, especially in the area of grip, easy strength, for whatever reason. I think it's because you're not so beat down that your brain has a chance to rewire your grip. But if you do easy strength, and for the fighters, I recommend 5 days a week. And the reason 5 is because they have to do 5 days a week because of the way they're wired. And I have them do a vertical press, a vertical pull-up, a deadlift variation, ab wheel, and then something that the fifth exercise is something we agree on. I had one doing power curls for a while, long-term wrist injuries from his old fighting style. But he needed something explosive, didn't want to do kettlebells, so we were having him do, heavy power curls, cheat curls, that look, to me, are power cleans, but to him were power curls, and it worked out great. But yeah, I think very much that you can get very strong and keep your weight down by doing easy strength. So to summarize, really, Will asks a good question. As a fighter, I can't go up and weight. What do I do? My response, easy strength 5 days a week, a vertical press, military press, a vertical pull up, a deadlift variation, and we'd have to swim through probably anywhere between 3 and 5 variations because of the different things we want to get out of the deadlift. Snatch grip deadlifts would be one of them. Thick bar deadlifts would be another. An ab wheel, something as simple as a couple sets of 5 every day, and then an exercise that meets your particular needs, anywhere from kettlebell swings to power curls to, kettlebell snatches for the one guy because he wanted more conditioning, and that's what I gave him. Yeah, you can keep your body weight down on easy strength and focusing on just watching the bar go up and staying away from the density training that you get that will give you the hypertrophy. Thank you. I hope that helps. It's a good question. Okay, we have a question from Ross. Ross, my question is, what is your opinion of the film 13th Warrior? Well, I loved the movie. I know everybody else in the world hated it, but I liked it. Adapted from the book Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton. It's funny because the version I actually listened, I read the book and then I got it on, at the library, had it on a CD, and I could remember listening to it, and the guy kept going, Eaters of the Dead, like that. Okay, that was silly. He apparently wrote the book as a reinterpretation of the Beowulf poem, which is true, after arguing with a friend that it was not boring and in fact needed to be presented in the correct way. So my first published paper is on Beowulf, and I wish that book would have been around then because I found it very good. One of the things that I think is missing from the movie is that, and I think I have this right, in the book, the Eaters of the Dead are Neanderthals. And I don't know if you think about it that way, and of course I have my own theories about Genesis chapter 4 and the Neanderthal. It's pretty clear to me that there were other I guess hominoids is the best way to say it now, but other members of our family, and I think it is part of our deep collective memory that all you need to do is watch something like War of the World, The Time Machine, where I think when they go ahead in time, another group that we would used to kind of say were like the Neanderthal. I've often had this weird discussion about Cain and Abel, about that might be a Neanderthal story, and of course that I have no proof for that. They're just the others. I'm a big fan of it. Now, one of the things I do use in my daily life is the warrior king analogy from the story. I don't think you see it as well. You kind of do. In the movie you do, I guess. Is that warriors live in the pure present. Beowulf does not want to brag, doesn't want to sell a story because he's a warrior, and a warrior might not be around tomorrow. They live in the pure present. Kings, however, live past, present, future. Years ago, I read a colleague of mine who wrote an article, and he basically, without any reference to me, took this. But it's very interesting because, if you read the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln, you will see exactly that it is it starts off 7 years ago. It slides next to "We're gathered here," and then, of course, the great line that future generations aren't going to really care about what I just said. That is a king speaking. That's a Beowulf king speaking. So yeah, big fan. I, of course, went even deeper because I can't help myself. And I have what I call warrior diets, not Ori's warrior diet book, but warrior diets are the ones that, it's single foods, or it's a warrior diet, one meal a day. And then, of course, a much more kingly version is when you not only think about today's first meal, but you also put it into context with how you got here. If you're obese, it's the food decisions you've been making, what you're going to do today, and of course how your food intake is going to impact you, down the line. That's a good question. I appreciate that. Okay, we got a question from Donald. You were recently asked about Olympic lifting program for firefighters and talking about how most have probably aged out of these sort of lifts. Could you expand on that? Well, anytime you're in a collision sport or occupation, the sport, and the training begin to beat up on your joints. Now, obviously, if in my perfect world, no one would ever get injured, every program, no one would ever miss a lift, in the program, we would have no freakish injuries. There's never a misload. When you're a firefighter, you're asked to do certain things. A lot of it's unilateral loads. It's unilateral loads going up a ladder, and you get tweaks and injuries and stuff. You get small ouchies that over time make Olympic lifting and things like that not as good. Having said that, if we had a perfect approach, they certainly be part of it. At what age should one probably not pursue Olympic lifting with no background? That's the key. That's a good point, Donald. Donald raises the point, with no background, would you start Olympic lifting? Now, my good friend Pizza Steve, reminded me years ago that the reason he was such a good shot putter is that he never did cleans or snatches because they were so hard on the wrist. So he'd hit snatch pulls and clean pulls. And he's convinced, and it was like at first when I heard it, I was like, no, that's not right. But then I got to think, he's a really good shot putter telling me this, so I need to listen. And so the snatch pull, the clean pull, the overhead squat, and the front squat might be excellent at any time in someone's career. But having to learn the techniques and having to learn the other things, it's going to be, by the way, it's going to be very individual, Donald, very individual. But ballparking from what I see with most people, probably about age 35, in that 35 age range. I'm 50 and a firefighter and was considering adding these lifts into my training as a crossover benefits. With that said, you haven't steered me wrong yet. Give me a chance. So I'm open to suggestion. This is my second career, and I've been doing it since I was 40 with 10 years to go. I'm looking to keep myself in the game in a realistic, healthy way. I am a massive believer in the Olympic lifts, as you know. If you're interested in learning them, Donald, take your ego, pull it out, put it on a shelf for a couple of months, and go. If you had someone like I have, Dave Turner or Dick Notmeyer, go and train, if you can, with youth Olympic lifters. I'm talking about 12 and 13-year-olds, where you can do a lot of reps with broomsticks and get really tired. The hardest workout I've ever done. And I don't know what, if Dave was in a bad mood or what, but Parker Burns was with me, and we still talk about it. Basically, we did about an hour of broomstick snatch and clean and jerks. And so he would say, dip, jerk, recover, starting position, deadlift, stop, deadlift, stop. Just kept going, and it was exhausting. But at the end, I felt pretty good. When we got done, I felt pretty good. But what was nice is, I don't know how many front squats and overhead squats we did, but we greased up the joints, the elbows, the knees, and everything, and it was just marvelous. So if you want to do the Olympic lifts, humble yourself and train like you're a 13-year-old. If you go to my work, you'll find Dave Turner. Just Google my name and Dave Turner. I'm sure you'll find articles and probably newsletter stuff on what Dave taught me. And just do that. And if not, just find yourself a very beginning program and stick with it. The book Inside Weightlifting as a 3-day-a-week program, which I always thought was really good. Might be hard to find a copy of it now. And saying that, I don't know if I have mine anymore. Every time I get a copy of the book, someone borrows it, and I never get it back. And I'm thinking of you, Kate. Bring it back. The benefits of Olympic lifting are not just the strength and power, but the mobility, flexibility, and just, I like what it does for body composition. After you learn the lifts, Donald, I'd recommend easy strength for fat loss with Olympic lifting. Thank you. Good question. We have a question from Joseph. Joseph said, this is more feedback than a question. But first, what do you think of a certain somebody's training program? Very funny. Very funny, Joseph. The beatings will continue. I am a huge fan, have read all of your books. 40 Years with the Whistle is my favorite. Joseph, thank you. It is the worst selling book I have, but I think it's really good. But what do I know? All of your Teen Nation articles. I'm currently listening to all your podcasts for the second time. Joseph, we need to get you out, okay? Go on a date. Go do something fun. Thank you for all you selflessly gifted to the strength and conditioning community. Okay, I've been told by someone to start doing this. Joseph, thank you. I appreciate that. I have tended to push people back when they thank me. And I need to be much more gracious in appreciating it. I appreciate it. Thank you. I had injured several rotator cuff tendons. Oh, okay, I see what I mean. And a bicep tendon 2 years ago. Okay, don't do that. An initial period of rest reduced pain, but my deadlift and power clean drastically reduced. I should have taken that as a sign. Yes, you should. I tried furiously work them back up until a few months ago when I failed to clean and was suddenly in a lot of pain. Okay, right about probably on the turnover, right? Okay. Fast forward several weeks, I am now only doing my physical therapist prescribed exercises for the affected shoulder and arms. The one my PT has me do is this little shoulder shrugging touchdown. And I don't know if you could hear that, but I just got a great crack, and I've already done it several times today. With many of my favorite lifts out, I have been walking a lot, good, hill sprints, good, and most importantly, kneeling overhead press with a kettlebell. I clean and press the first rep, kneel with it overhead, press the remaining reps, stand up and immediately go for a waiter's walk, then rack it, then suitcase carry. Well, that's not bad. I mean, that's not bad for shoulders. It amazes me how much it feels as though the half kneeling press is a full body lift. I agree with you on that. The body's one piece. I would recommend to any of your listeners who have not tried to do so. Also, it appears as though between the press and very light band curls I'm doing for my PT, my guns have actually gotten thicker, even the injured one. Strange, but I'll take it. Wow. Joseph, thank you for the feedback. Joseph, I don't know, as I'm speaking, it's not available yet, but I do have a series of videos coming out called The Perfect Workout. And in The Perfect Workout, I recommend the half kneeling press, the hang, my hip thrust variation, my Bulgarian goat bag variation, the goblet squat, overhead squat, and the suitcase carrying. It's kind of fun to read that. You're doing very much the same thing. So yeah, half kneeling press for the win. Yeah, whoopee. Nice stuff. Joseph, thank you for that. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And that's a good thing to share with our listeners. Gentle listener, I like that kind of thing. I like the feedback I get from a question, from a statement like this. There was no actual question there, but I like it when somebody, one of the listeners, has some success, shares it with us, so more of us can get back on that journey. So thank you, Joseph, for that. And wow, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Our weekly podcast has come to a close, a finish. Remember, if you have questions, send them to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com, and I'll do my best to answer each and every one. Well, I got a busy week ahead of me. Not busy professionally, but busy in all those fun ways of life. I'm looking forward to a quiet week. I'm finishing up Easy Strength Omni book. The book should be done. I don't have much more to write. I'm doing another proofread, and I'm trying to listen to what I think is missing. And I think I've come up, I don't really have anything on recovery in there. Of course, if you train smart, you don't really need to recover as hard. But pretty soon that'll be out, and that'll give a lot of you more to read. And until next week, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you so much.